Hey everyone, this is Fabio and welcome back. I'm in New York at the moment, since up until yesterday I was in Ohio for the wedding of a good friend of mine, and but now I'm taking advantage of this to add a couple of days of vacation here in New York City before I go back to London in some days. But we are in the middle of E3, and rightly so, there is a lot of excitement about it because of the big announcements that have been made. I saw a couple of videos about them. Both Sony and Microsoft are done, so soon will be Nintendo's turn, and I think they really need some big hits in order just to keep up the pace with the other two, because the announcements were really impressive, and I think both companies learned from the last year, especially Sony. But apart from that, I'm not making this video to talk about E3, that's not necessary. And at the same time, I'm not making this video to talk about Shenmue 3 or Final Fantasy VII, because both like YouTube and Facebook or the entire internet is flooded by videos and comments and posts about these two games. And I am really excited about it. I mean, I cannot believe they're actually making Shenmue 3, and that just confirmed in a way what I said in a previous video of mine about Kickstarter, that it's perfect for these kind of things. It's perfect for big developers. Yu Suzuki made Shenmue 3 was just, I think, a natural and obvious follow-up to Igarashi and Bloodstain. The only one missing now is Kojima, basically, and I'm sure that soon he will make a Kickstarter that will be funded by the seconds. I'm impressed by how fast Shenmue 3 was funded. I mean, that was insane, but almost shows how much we care about this game, and I'm really glad that it's happening. Personally, I haven't played the games, even though I own the first one, but at the moment my Dreamcast is not connected, so I cannot play yet, but I cannot wait to play it, because it's one of the most uh, one of the games for the Dreamcast that I'm the most curious about. But as I say, I'm not here to talk about Shenmue. I'm not here to talk about Final Fantasy VII, because I'm not very excited about that, because I'm not a big Final Fantasy VII fan. And before you bombard me with dislikes, just for being honest, I'm still excited for the remake. It's something that people wanted, I think, since the PS2 days. I don't know if it's Square held it back up until like the 20th anniversary of the game or something like that, or they were just tired of being asked for a remake of this game. But we'll see. But as I said, I'm still glad that it's coming, because it's something that people wanted since ever, basically. Not me personally, but we'll see. It looked very good. I mean, honestly, even though I don't like Final Fantasy VII very much, I really want to play that remake now. But that's beyond the point of the video. What I wanted to do now with all this hyped for Shenmue and the Final Fantasy VII Remake, I wanted to talk about, actually make a video about remakes in general, and what remakes I would love to see in the future, basically. Some pipe dreams of mine, even though I know that probably all of my dreams will not be realized by companies. Let's pretend for a moment that companies will listen to me and will say, Fabio, you're actually right, we need to make this remake. Of course it's not going to happen, but as I said, let's pretend for a moment. And of course this is also where you, all you guys, I would like to see some comments or video responses of some remakes that you would like to see. As I said, just something that you're dreaming since you played a certain game or something. I've made a short list of some games that I love and I would really like to see remakes. It's just something I made right now. I'm sure that I'm forgetting some. Like, the moment I stop making the video, I'll say like, oh, I forgot about that. But as I said, that's where you are coming, and we'll sure that you will add some great remakes that I'm forgetting. But let's just get into this. This is no order or anything like that. And of course, these are games that I loved, and most of them it's because I'm very nostalgic about them. And I think that we should have remakes of these particular games, but there are, as I said, there are so many that are worth remake. The first that I thought, no wonder, it's a game that I loved immensely when I played it. It's one of my among my favorite games of all time. It's the big RPG, JRPG of my PlayStation 1 days. The game that I love it while everybody else was like loving Final Fantasy VII mainly. Even though like this came out later, people were still talking about Final Fantasy VII being the greatest PlayStation 1 RPG of all time, or uh, the best game of all time or something. I was playing this game and think like, fuck Final Fantasy VII, this game is so much better. And that is Legend of Dragoon. I love this game. I loved it immensely. I played this game so much back then. I'm sure that I played for more than 100 hours. I'm sure of it. Because first of all, it's a long game, and then it's the combat system. It's so addictive, and you really want to perfect every single of your moves with all the characters. And I was completely hooked by the story. The certain characters, like I'm still one of the main reasons for me to play this game is the story of Rose. That story really blew me away at the time. Um, but and it's what makes me really mad. It's how Sony just abandoned this potentially huge series. This could have been Sony's Final Fantasy basically, because the story was. People say it was a really, and it kind of is in a way, but just on the surface. People say this game has a pretty simple story in a way. Like yes, it is like good versus evil, the childhood friend with the big secret, blah blah blah. But that's just the surface, as I said. I mean, this game was actually huge. I mean, the world. It presents all the story of the world, the religion of the world. I mean, there were enough contents to make so many games, like prequels, sequels, spin-offs. Sony could have made a massive series out of Legend of Dragoon. Back then, the combat system was also so a breath of fresh air compared to the classic turn-based, which I still loved. I'm never tired of turn-based combat, but this was so different. It was still turn-based, but that's like touch of action that you have to press the buttons and in order to perform this specific move. I mean, it was such a wonderful and massive game. I really got into the religious aspect, the story of this world and everything, these characters, everything to me was in. To me, this is easily one of the best games on the PS1 and that generation in general. And Sony worked for a long time at the project for a sequel on the PS2 that I waited and waited, and recently, maybe a couple of years ago or something, they announced that Legend of Dragoon 2 will never happen. So I'm sure that they will never actually do a remake for the first one. That I'm just dreaming of like HD graphics, like the transformations into the Dragoon, the moves, like a decent voice acting. Even though I loved the bad voice acting of the PS1 era. I cannot help it. It's so bad that it's good. Think of Resident Evil, think of Grandia, think of Legend of Dragoon and everything. It was so bad that I loved it. But a remake of Legend of Dragoon will make my head explode. It will make my heart explode because this is a game that I have such a connection with. I don't understand. I mean, people love this game, but the overall impression is that this game it's okay, but it's nothing special. That's the general feeling that I had at the time. And I was like, no, guys, you don't get it. This game is unbelievable. But again, a remake, an HD remake, like on PS4, whatever you want. Yes, since it's a Sony game, I don't think we'll see it on Wii U. But a PS4 remake, maybe with add content. Not that the game needs add content because it's really big, but let's say with add content, more storyline to develop more of the secondary characters. Because of course, like Dart, Shanna, Rose, Albert have great stories, but some of the others I would love to see more about. Well, Meru has a good story too, but more about her, Congo, Hanshell, all of those great characters. I would love to see more of them. So definitely, that's always my most wanted remake. I know it's never going to happen, but who knows? I mean, they made Final Fantasy VII the remake after so many years, so who knows? Another game, or games, it depends, but I would love to see both of them actually remake. And it's of course another series that I absolutely love, and that it's Parasite Eve. A remake of Parasite Eve 1 and also 2, because I really like 2. It would be phenomenal. I don't know if it's possible because of the same problem that Third Birthday had. And let me just say that I really liked Third Birthday because you said how horrible that game is, because I think it's an actually good game. But it needed to be made for PS3 rather than PSP. Even though it's a good PSP game, on PS3 that game would have been amazing. But Parasite 1 and 2 on PS4, oh my goodness, would be so good. I mean, improving since that game was the cinematic RPG back in the days. Uh, Thinking about it today probably makes you laugh if you look at the videos, but back then that quality was amazing. Um, and Parasite Eve 2 was the same. These two games were phenomenal, and to see an HD remake of that, because nowadays could be again kind of fresh. We haven't seen games really like Parasite Eve, how they're supposed to be. Because even though I like Parasite Eve, Third Birthday, I know that it's very different since I played and did it. Like it's more of an action game, and the RPG element is almost gone in Third Birthday. But like a bigger version of both 1 and 2 would be so good. That would be an interesting way to like kind of relive the interest, the hype for the series. Because to me, it's still one of my favorite Square series, and I think we really need more of this. Even though, as I say, I don't know, since Square lost the rights for Parasite Eve, probably that's the reason why we'll never touch it again, because it's not as profitable as they like. But who knows? Because back in the day it was a big series, and as I said, it's one of my favorite series made by Square, and to see like the big remake of 1 especially, like Ayabrea and Eve and all those stuff in HD with like modern graphics and improved controllers, I don't know, something like that, that would be insane. Like imagine Dryfield in Parasite Eve 2, the huge flamethrower monster, like New Arc, all of those in a sort of massive 3D. That would be mind blowing. I love Parasite Eve so much. Another game that I would love to see, Fear Effects. I remember a video by Alpha Omega Sin talking about that. I don't remember what it's called. That initiative by Square Enix to kind of like helping fans to like make suggestions for series or projects or something. It was like Square Enix Community. I really don't remember how it's called. And you remember he mentioned like, so like maybe Fear Effect it's coming back or something like that. Imagine like a big remake of Fear Effect. That would be insane. Like because that game was so unique back then, that the graphics, the cinematic experience again. Imagine with the power of PS4 what Fear Effect could actually do. I mean, it was just made uh, Uncharted or Tomb Raider pale in comparison, because of course it could use some of those elements like live action or like the cinematic elements. It would be amazing with the great story it has. And I'm just saying the first one because Retro Addicts, even though it's a very good game, I didn't like it as much of the first one, even though it's a really good game. But Fear Effect 1 was amazing. Again, one of my favorite games on the PS1, easily, because like it was so mature at the time. Because nowadays, again, looking back at these games are so much simpler. I mean, it was one of the first PS1 game, at least that I remember, that showed like almost nudity, like full cursing or something like that. It was really mature for the time, with that weird graphics. It's such a cool game that really needs to be remade, because they canceled the third one, Inferno. It was supposed to come on PS2. Let's hope for at least, well, a sequel would be great, but I would really like to see a remake with the muscle power of PS4, Xbox One, Wii U, whatever. Um, but with modern consoles, these kind of games with that much horsepower behind would be incredible. Like the same, another one that I personally really love, and most of them it's interesting that are PS1 games because I think these are the games that need to be remade. Mm, and also because like PS2, I didn't own it back then, so I cannot think of PS2 games that should have remakes. But you can suggest some PS2 games, I'm sure about it. But Dino Crisis. Since it's obvious that Dino Crisis 4 it's never going to happen because Capcom basically admitted that for both Dino Crisis and Onimusha, they would love to make remake like sequels, but they don't have good ideas for them. That's really depressing, I know. But imagine since look at Resident Evil 1, how good the remake was on the Wii U, and I heard that the PS3 360 as well, I think, remake of that game, the remake of the remake, that's did very, very good in terms of money. So imagine on that kind of style, Dino Crisis 1, because that's by far the best of the series, and personally it's still one of my favorite survival horror games of all time. And a big remake of that would be insane. Right? I will play that because Dino Crisis 1 is one of the survival horror games I play the most, actually. Even probably only Resident Evil 3 might beat it out in terms of times I finish it, but I prefer Dino Crisis 1 much more than Resident Evil 3. The only one that for me is better are debatable, but Parasite 1 and Resident Evil 2, of course. These are two of my favorite survival horror games of all time. But I really love Dino Crisis. Like, the atmosphere was so good. It was um, perfect controllers for a perfect survival horror, I mean. Tame controls, but a bit less wonky than Resident Evil 2. Um, Back then, the graphics were mind-blowing because it was, I think, the first Capcom survival horror full in 3D, compared because Resident Evil 2 had like the 2D background and 3D characters or something like that in the Resident Evil games. And in fact, Dino Crisis 2 went back to that style, and it was so much more action-oriented. Even though it's a fun game, it's not even near to how amazing the first one. I would love to see Regina in a full HD remake since I love her back then. It's one of my favorite characters of all time in terms of like female characters. And yes, Dino Crisis would be phenomenal in a big remake. One that really needs a remake, and I think the perfect way to do it would be on the Vita. It's of course Lunar 2. I played Lunar Silver Star Harmony recently on the PSP, and I never understood why Game Arts never made a remake of Lunar 2, Eternal Blue, following the amazing remake on the PSP of the first one. The first one, and also because the first one was remade and republished so many times that Lunar 2, I think the only version that we had are the original on the Sega CD and the PS1 one, and that's it. So I really think that we need more Lunar. Of course, a third game would be insane. Just to think about it is insane, but just like Grandia, that it's another one on my list. Both Grandia and Lunar need a new game. Uh, Although I heard that Grandia 2 might get a remake, probably on Steam, um, but Lunar 2 really needs to be a remake, I think. On PS Vita would be phenomenal. Because I love Lunar 1 so much, but I heard so many good things about Lunar 2 that I really want to play that game, but for the moment it's not possible. So let's hope that sometimes in the future Game Arts will actually make this happen, because it would be insane to finally play Lunar 2. As we should really. And the same, Grandia, I would love a remake of Grandia. Grandia is one of the games I'm the most attached to. But as I said, Grandia 2 it's probably coming, and that game it's amazing, so if that happens, I will be really happy. We're almost done here, just a couple more. Mm, Again, this is kind of easy, but I really want Ease 5, I really want the remake of Catherine. Because that game, first of all, it's available only on the Super Famicom, and at the same time, after how good like Ultim Felghana was, like how amazing the new combat system is on. Like you can say look at both is Ultim Felghana and Origin or East 7 and Celceta. You can work on one of the two because East 5 is I think it's the first East game that introduced actually a new combat system after 4 that was still run and bun. So, but I believe that if Falcom makes a new East game, uh, East 5 is one of the most plausible ones because they really needed to remake this game and make it like available for Western audiences. Now that East is more popular than ever, it's kind of easy to see a new version of East 5 in the future. So that almost doesn't count. But I love East so much that I really have to put an East game here. Yeah, of course, East 4. I mean, the only way to play it is on the TurboGrafx, so or in Japan. So that's really the East game that I want to play, actually. Last two. Last two. Uh, Probably another one that I love. It's of course, and it's never going to happen because it's a Capcom game, Breath of Fire 2. And 1 if you want, but 2 in particular because that is my favorite Super Nintendo game of all time, and it's one of the greatest game of all time to me. Easily one of the greatest RPG of all time, especially for back in the days. That game was so amazing because it has such a dark and great and mature story, especially for Super Nintendo times. And it's not that other games are not, but it has the multiple endings. It has great characters. The story was so good, and just to have a remake of that game, and the way I imagine it, I would love to see it. Imagine the graphic style of Breath of Fire 4, but the HD or the best way you can improve that graphic engine. Even though nowadays it's dated, of course, but still, you with Breath of Fire, I think you need to keep the anime style because that's one of the things that why I fell in love with that series so much. As you know, it's my favorite RPG series of all time. I am obsessed with Breath of Fire, um, and 2 together with 3 is my favorite. I really cannot decide between the two. I mean, just have like that. This is it. I cannot do that because one day maybe I think 3 is my favorite, the next day 2 is my favorite. And that game is so good. I mean, if you never play Breath of Fire 2, do it. Do yourself a favor because it's easily one of the greatest RPG of all time and easily one of the best on the Super Nintendo. I mean, together with Final Fantasy VI and Chrono Trigger, it's up there with them. Maybe it's a bit overshadowed by them overall in the grand scheme of things, but for me, maybe I'm a bit of some nostalgia blends, and because I love Breath of Fire so much, but I try to be as honest as possible, and Breath of Fire 2 is just as good as I'm saying. So I cannot recommend enough that game. Play it on Game Boy Advance. I think it's on a Virtual Console. Play that game because it's phenomenal. And this is one of the remakes that I want the most. I know it's not going to happen. It's Capcom. Breath of Fire, we know what's happening with Breath of Fire 6, even though it has interesting ideas. I admit that. I'm not just negativity on it, because it has interesting ideas, let's be honest. But also, the main problems is that it's only in Japan, it's on mobile console. These things, rightly, are driving people crazy. Me first. Just put this freaking game on 3DS to the West, Capcom, if you're afraid of not making enough money. Leave it on phone for Japan, since that's the big phone market. Bring this game to the 3DS. People will be more inclined to try it. Finally, so I can finish this video, it's going longer than I expected, but I also love to talk about these games and why I love them so much. This is difficult to say, because it's more than one. I mean, how can I not mention the classic Phantasy Star games? These games are the reason why I got into RPG, why I love JRPGs. Phantasy Star 2 is the first JRPG I ever played. Phantasy Star 4, I cannot stress this enough. It's my favorite game of all time. These games are masterpieces. And Technically, there are the remakes of Phantasy Star 1 and 2 on PS2, but only in Japan, of course. But they looked so good. But just do this. I don't know. Might be possible because, as I said, these are 4 games. And rather than remakes, in all honesty, I would prefer Phantasy Star 5. I would like to see a new saga of classic Phantasy Star games. Like Phantasy Star 4 closed down the saga of the Argo solar system, moved to a new one. You don't need to continue the story. Phantasy Star 4 is perfection, how it is. Move to another story, move to another solar system, move to something else. Change the pace, saga. We have enough fantasy action games. They're good. I'm not saying that. Soon I will play Phantasy Star Portable. Um, but I think now that we have so many action RPGs in the series, it would be kind of breath of fresh air to go back to the classic turn-based. Maybe you can improve that in a new, modern way, of course. I'm not saying use the combat system of Phantasy Star 1, but as I said, remakes of these 4 games, maybe, why not? It would be amazing. But again, 4 games, it's a bit too much. I'm a bit cheating here. What I really want is a new, at least trilogy, a new saga in the Phantasy Star universe. That it doesn't need to be connected with 4. Absolutely not. And there is a whole universe that you can do with Phantasy Star. It's not difficult. I don't understand why they're waiting so much for Phantasy Star 5. But I don't want Atlus to make it, by the way. Because it would just be like Shin Megami Tensei, and I don't want that for Phantasy Star. So, I don't know if it counts, I just wanted to add that because I'm such a huge fan of Phantasy Star in general, and especially the classic series. So there you go, these are some remakes that I would love to see in the future. They will never happen, I know that, but as I said at the beginning, it's because of this hype and excitement for the Final Fantasy VII remakes, I decided to see, like, what would you like to see in terms of remakes? Now, that game, it took how many years? Like, it will be for the 20th anniversary in 2017. We can wait. I mean, we wait 20 years for that. So, what are some of the games that you love, that you will like to see remakes of them? Like Super HD on PS4, Wii U, whatever you like, Vita, as I said, whatever you like. Because I would really like to hear more of them, because I'm sure I'm forgetting about many of them. There's so many good games and should have remakes or reboots or whatever you want. Just let me know. So this is it. Thanks for watching, guys, like always. See you next time. Take care.